Hello YouTube, I'm here to show you how to do a repair in some cavity drain membrane. That's this stuff. These are the kind of nipply type of membrane that goes against a wall in a basement. And I'll show you what happens. So this is a cavity drain membrane plug, and what it is, I'll show you what it looks like. We've got some over here. This is my pack of plugs, I've not got many left. So it consists of this plug with an internal thread for a wood screw, and the wood screw goes into, see where my finger is, it stops about there, which is about 35 millimeters in. These plugs are really very well made. They're about £1 each, which is a lot of money, but that's why people say doing cavity drain systems are very expensive. But they are really necessary, because obviously what happens is your water comes through your concrete because you're in a basement, and there's going to be construction joins in the concrete, and the water seeps over time through that, and then the idea is it will drip down the concrete behind this membrane, and then it will find its way to the sump, which is down there somewhere. But obviously you need to be able to put a wall up on top of this membrane, so that's what these plugs are for. They're really well made. Excuse my dirty fingers, I'll show you why they're dirty in a second. But what you do is you drill your 6mm hole in the wall, and the idea is you drill them at 600 centres, but in reality that's sometimes not how it works, because you can see here that there's a 400mm centre there, but they're not 400mm centres, and we had to do that to work around another problem. Doggy away please. And so you drill your 6mm hole and you smack them in really hard with a rubber mallet like this, and then you screw in, and you really have to make sure you select the right length of screw. Now I've got 3x2 wood here, and there's a massive gap. I can get my whole hand in, and the reason for that is the wall is very unplumbed, so there's no gap at the bottom, and there it turns into a big gap at the top, and then you can see there's not much of a gap there as well. So you do need to kind of account for this gap and account for the length of this. So I'm quite careful when I'm doing my stud work up with these, to measure with a ruler or a tape measure or whatever, exactly so that the screw goes in by 35mm. So on this one here, here's my stud that I've just taken out. You want to get let's say the stud goes directly up against there, and the stud is 75mm. You would go 75 plus 35 makes 110, so 100mm screw would be absolutely perfect. If you had 80mm screws, you could just kind of drill a pilot hole. I'm using kind of bits like this to just sink the screw a little bit. I like to sink the screw using a pilot hole rather than just shove it in hard with the impact driver, because then when you pull it out, which you invariably do because you get it wrong, it doesn't tear out bits of wood. Anyway, I digress. Now that is in there, but it was in here previously because actually the 400 was to there, and so initially it was put in, but then we needed to work around. We've got a gas pipe going. It's a long story as to why we had to move this to here and then put another one there, but now what we did initially was just screw it into the frame, but the frame's a little bit wobbly, so I decided to take the stud out, and I'm going to relocate these. Why am I not using new ones? Because I think the minimum order for these was 100, and I don't want to spend 100 quid just to get a couple more of these things, and as you can see from my box, I'm running short. And there are many other reasons why you might want to repair an existing hole, such as someone snagged it, or you've drilled through and you've missed one or whatever. Anyway, the official way of doing it is just to shove some of this very special Delta Membranes tape, or you might be using a Newton system. And what it looks like is it's a tape with a backing, and this is the backing, and then you tear it off, and then you're left with this, and it's really sticky and it makes your fingers go black. But the official way is not just to use this tape and shove a square over. You're actually supposed to use this, this is jointing tape, but you can also use rope. I wonder if I've got some rope I can show you. Yes, I have. So this is rope, and mine's a bit squidged, but it's still okay. It's essentially the same stuff as this, except it comes in kind of a round format, like a kind of a licorice. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it comes in this kind of licoricey format, and the idea is you squeeze it up into a ball and you put it into holes to repair them. Or in the case of if you're doing ceilings, you're not really supposed to use this situation, but you need to actually take the yellow included rubber bung off of there. Here we go, I've got some I can show you. So this is, you don't normally put membrane on ceilings, but you can at a pinch. And what they say is you need to actually fit your own sticky stuff as the seal. Shouldn't really use the built-in rubber seals. And you can see this is wet. Can you see that? But it's wet on the other side. And we've had this on here now for about 4 or 5 years, and we've not had a drip inside. I've got to say it's been ultimately reliable. You can see here that is actually water, but it's just not come through. So this is actually quite an old brick that we've drilled into. So it's a bit dodgy drilling into old brick, but sometimes it does happen that you drill in and you hit a mortar joint, which is basically lime mortar, and the mortar just falls out, and then there's no kind of, this doesn't hold properly, and so you mustn't leave it like that, because water will eventually find its way in. I've got to say, this way of putting the joints in, putting these plugs in, has been 100% successful so far, touch wood. And you can see there's quite a lot of moisture. Can you see that on the other side of this membrane? And it's holding it in really well. Anyway, I've gone kind of a bit off topic. On walls, you definitely can use these with the included yellow rubber seals. So what I would be doing is I would be taking, let's say I want to take this one out. Actually, I don't want to take that out, but I can take this one out if I wanted to reuse it, if it's not doing much or whatever. It's not recommended that you take these out, by the way. It's not a recommended thing to do. Once they're in, they should definitely stay in. But if you've got a hole in your wall and you need to solve it, invariably it does happen that you get things like creases, and there might be what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to get some of this tape, this jointing tape, which, by the way, this black stuff along the horizontal joints is used to joint. Doesn't do a perfect job at that, by the way. Or get some of this called rope. Okay, and then you squeeze it up into a little ball, into a little kind of a snake. It's like about that long, and you make your hole bigger. So you get, here's one I've done before, and you can see I've squeezed that black stuff through the hole. And the reason is because now this is now a hole. This goes almost flat against the wall, and it's not supposed to. So if the membrane gets in touch with the wall, there's a possibility that water runs down the wall and it might track onto the membrane and potentially even through the hole. And what shoving this stuff into the hole does is it actually prevents it tracking out of the hole. So of course, you can put this tape on flat, but if the water can get actually out of that hole, even behind the tape, then eventually that tape's going to wear out and kind of, going to go, are we happy now? We're happy. It's going to go, it's not going to remain waterproof. Anyway, so the idea is you pull, so what you do, you can see I've got a screw in here already. You just put a screw in to a plug. You chuck your mallet behind there. I can't do this with one hand. And then you get your nice your nice hammer, and you rest it against the mallet to lever it out, and the whole plug comes out. And with it brings, a good degree of brick. And then you wrap your little things into a little mini snake. Sorry, this stuff into a snake. And you shove it in, and then the good practice is to actually fill the whole internal part of the nipple with that as well. And then once you've done that, you would take some of this, and you would take some of, this is going to be fun with one hand, isn't it? What could possibly, oh God, take some of that, there we go. And then you would just clean around it. That's white spirit or whatever you use. You just clean around it, obviously let it go dry before you put the tape on. And there's no recommended amount of tape, I don't think. That's gone all the way through the hole, almost into the wall actually. Just cleaned around it. This is a bit of a messy job site here. I got into doing something, then I had to do something else, then I had to do something else, and it was really late at night and I didn't clear it up, and now I just want to get the job done. That's my excuse. I'm just gonna dab it off. There we go. And then you've removed the back of the tape. God. and then you just shove it on. I've got a bit of stuff on there, but it will hold really nicely. And which way should we do it? Let's do it this way. Right, that is now good. You can use a square, you can use a smaller square, use your discretion on that one, but give it a proper good push with your hands. I wonder if I can show you how kind of difficult it is. Yeah, this is me showing you how difficult it is removing this stuff. So there's actually two types of this tape. There's the new type and the old type, and I've got some of this old stuff left. It's about it's about £70 for a roll of this, yeah? So I'm not going to go wasting it. So I'm going to use the old stuff, but the downside with the old stuff is that it's really hard to remove this backing tape, and it sometimes takes half of the, can you see, it takes half of the adhesive with it. See that? When you split it, it actually, anyway, what you do is you just go do it and then you go for it, and it works anyway, just about, and then you get dirty fingers, but there's the back of it. Now I literally can't touch anything, but I'll switch the camera around. I'm going to pop this one on here, and it is a properly messy job. And you know what, the best thing to have on hand, because this just stuff just sticks to absolutely everything. You put gloves on, it'll just make you ruin your gloves straight away. So I'll tell you what I do. Give it a quick wipe with whatever's going, and I'll run in and get some WD-40 from my pile of cans. I had a here we go. Get some WD-40. I spray it on my hands because I'm a bit of a weirdo, but I do not like this stuff getting on my hands, and it starts going black, and that's good because it means it's going to come off. Really, just then it gets in your nails. Oh, for the love of God. Yeah, I really don't like this. You need a lot of towel. You need a lot of kitchen towel, or builder's towel. Blue stuff is probably the cheapest, best stuff. Screw fix, whatever. Just to get this off of your hands, or just keep going. Next I'll show you putting the plug in, and then all of that stuff. In fact, I'll show you that. So the advice is you could just screw in the right place and then guess, and then shove your drill through, and then aim for it. When you've got 3-inch studs going in that direction, you often get your driver in, or if you screw it in or whatever, you often go off at an angle slightly, and then you completely miss it. And this is my solution for ones that are already in there, and I didn't want to take the whole stud off to locate them. I will get a Forstner bit like this, and it really matters what bit you use. One like this with the teeth that go around is absolutely excellent, and I've tried different ones. And then I will kind of measure it and guess it to about, say, here. Let's say it's just to the left of the middle, and I'll go whack my Forstner bit in, and then I'll get a 10mm drill bit. So I'll Forstner to that deep, get a 10mm drill bit and wangle it around to make the hole really big, and then use washers and screws. And it might seem over the top, but I've actually also measured the depth of the Forstner bit as well for each one. But once it's in, it is they're really strong, and it's a really good idea doing it properly. It looks a complete mess, and you might be thinking, well, there's nothing proper about this at all. But I tell you what, it's just about getting the right friction on that attachment, and that is going to be what keeps your building watertight for longer. So now I've got one that I have located already. Can you see that hole? That's ready for that one. I changed my mind and decided to do all three. That's why I didn't do all at the same time. What I would do is I'd chuck this back in, I'd screw that up, make sure it's lined up in this case, and then I would just literally get my drill, and then I'd go for my other two holes, and it doesn't really matter where I put them, just equally spaced. Boom, straight through the middle. I'll go out the back of it, make a little kind of nick in the back of that, take the stud away, and then do the hole properly with the SDS. And then I don't need to bother with all of this faff as well, because I've taken the stud off anyway. So I hope that makes sense. I wonder if I can set the camera up to show. You don't need to see it, do you? Let's try it anyway. Okay. So let's see. Hopefully you can see this. Right, so here it is. I'm gonna pop this stud back in. There we go, and then I'm going to get my screw in, and as I mentioned before, This is going to be 100mm. Now, I've only got 100mm screws, so I'm going to do the dodgy thing of sinking the screw by a certain amount, and it is going to be best on this occasion, I think, to use a Forstner bit. Now, this is what you never do, is you never try to align, God, it's noisy. You never try to align a Forstner bit with something that's whole, because it's got this little point and it's supposed to go in, and then that keeps it central. But I'm going to flout that rule and wang it, which means I'm going to literally hold the barrel of the drill and just keep digging it in. Maybe you can't see, but it's slipping all over the place. But if I go in at a slight angle, then it grips, and then I can change that angle later. And you hope you don't slip, because that's my hand. And if you speak to any carpenter, they'll tell you when you're using a Forstner bit, you never go fast. You always go slow, because that's how Forstner bits are designed. But I'm using it in anger, and I don't really care. Right, now I've gone in by a good centimetre. I'm going to try it with a 100mm screw. And the good thing about these 100mm screws, and the excellent thing about these plugs, is that they are very, very strong. So if you were to hit the back of this, it won't just pierce through the back of it, because obviously that's got to be watertight. So imagine if you did just keep screwing and you went through to the other side, water could potentially track that way, and then it's going to come down your screw onto your stud and then make your stud wet, which so you might be worried you don't want to over screw these. This is really important that you don't. But the good news is these things are, I don't know what they put at the bottom of these, but I've screwed hard with an impact driver in with it before for testing, and it just kind of stops. It's amazing, really. They're really good. So I've got my 100mm screw, chuck that in. Now, my hole's actually quite big, so I will just use a washer. And I'm getting my washers out. And I'll just, why not use a washer as well? Made a hole for it, so I might as well. Chuck my washer on and then go a bit slowly. Also, I'm going to need to measure the gap behind the stud. Yeah, that's pulled in nice and tight now. Not that tight, but once I add more. Right, now that's good to go. I'm now going to get my drill, 10mm bit, or 12, or whatever you like, it doesn't really matter. Now, actually, should I use the Forstner bit first? Yeah, I could use the Forstner bit because it doesn't matter. I'll use the Forstner bit first, make my life a bit easier. And then, I don't really care where I'm putting these. So I'm just going to put one there, go with one there, and that was a bit easier. And I've sunk it to about the depth of the Forstner bit on that one. Do another one. Oh gosh, always wear PPE. Going round and round with the Forstner bit. Again, that's not an approved method, but there you go, job done. Now I'm going to go through the hole, make the hole rather, and then through the back of the stud and make a little ding. I was going to say ding, accidentally rude there. Just locate that in here. And I've made a little hole in the membrane which I can see, which I'll use to locate these things that I've removed because I wanted to save them in this case. Don't do this, just buy some more. Don't be skanky like me. But yeah. Holding it in place. Now I didn't quite reach it. In fact, that's not going to get anywhere near. I can get my entire fist behind that stud. Might just leave that one out. I could use a 150mm screw. 75 looks like another 75. That's not even going to go in. Do you know what? That's a waste of time. Never mind. That's fine. I'll just save one of these things. Let's pull him back out again. And then you can see me chucking this one in. So get the screw out because it's wedged in pretty hard. And that's my dodgy looking thing. And where's my hole? Here it is. Oh, I've got to make a SDS. that's the length of my bit, and it's 6mm. And I happen to know that on this particular brick, I've got to go in and then give it a little bit of wrangle to just kind of break a bit of the brick out. It's not quite, this is worn down, this bit now. And if you don't get it hard enough, you're smacking it and it stops halfway. You can get it out again, but... I'll push that in quite far. And here we go. Pop it in. And then you can see me doing it. I could use a metal hammer, it doesn't really matter. No, I've got khaki black stuff on my nice hammer. My nice new hammer. Oh dear. It's some W40 on that. Anyway. I'll do it properly using a, right, that is in, and I'm happy with it. So the final part, plonk the phone down here. The final part is putting this stud back on. Now I've realised since doing these holes and putting that plug in there, that I'd need 150mm or even 160mm screw to reach this one, because the wall just drops away so much. So I'm not going to bother, because actually it's screwed in at the bottom, screwed into here, and that's pretty tight. And it's only the top bit that I wanted to stop kind of moving around like that. Right, just checking that I had the right angle. So to put it back on, have a look. Now I'm going to get my long level and pop it against the rest of the wall so that I know exactly where I'm getting this to. I don't want it to stick out from the other side. Oh, excuse me. Now I know that this one's tight against there. That is good. Holding that in there. I'm just going to pin it with this. Didn't move too much. Right, I've pinned it at the top so it's not going to move. And let's just pin it at the bottom via these things. Couple of screws in. You can't really see what I'm doing, but I've got a screw and I've got a bottom plate down here I'm screwing into. And I actually have 2 screws in there, so let's just do 80mm. 2 screws is better than 1. Lovely jubbly. And then pop these ones in here. And oops. Right, that's pretty solid at the bottom, but there's still a bit of movement at the top. See that? I don't know if you can see that, but there is. Now, behind there, I've got a gap, okay? The first thing I need to do is just check to see how level we are. It needs to go in at the top by, excuse me, about 1 millimetre. So I get my trusty centre, it doesn't matter if it's a centre ruler, my Axminster ruler, and see, I've got about 10mm packer I'm going to have to put between the plug and the stud. Just so happens I've got 10mm here, pretty handy. So let's pop it in, loosen that up a bit, see if I can fit it in. Let's just gently pull this whole frame out, get it in. Yeah, I think that's kind of in. I'll make it so it doesn't. Yeah, it's in. No, I'm not happy with that. It's going to potentially fall out. Right, let's try that again. If I just pop that in a little bit, now that's actually gone into the plug, so I've got something to hook these round. And really do have to apply a bit of pressure. Yeah, that's in. Do a last level check in case I've screwed this in the wrong place. Check the next one along. Yeah, that needs to go back as well. I'm pretty happy with that. So that's screwed in, and hopefully when I screw this now, it's going to pull in a tiny bit, but it'll feel really good when I'm pulling onto this plug. Yeah, hear that noise? That just means that the plug is not moving, and that has gone really tight. So I'm very pleased with that. And it could have done with going in a bit more. Now if I'm being fussy, might make that 9mm, but you get the idea. I'm going to stop the video here because it's boring. Now to protect the gas pipe, using these checkerboards, which are 2.5mm steel, and I'm going to cut them. I'm going to mount the steel to stud, stud and stud, actually stud and stud, and then up to there, and then I'm going to have to put little bits of wood over the top so I can actually mount the plasterboard to the wood whilst protecting the pipe work with this steel checkerboard all the way along. Hope you can see that on the video. Great, well thanks for watching, and perhaps see you next time. Thank you very much.